The Giants started out the year 19-10. The vibes were high. Everything was different under Buster Posey. But now, all of a sudden, some very real concern, and it starts with the offense.
You are Locked On Giants, your daily San Francisco Giants podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to Locked On Giants, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. My name is Ben Kaspick, and on this show we provide daily episodes Monday through Friday, talking about the San Francisco Giants in a way that's data-driven and rational, but also simple, passionate, and accessible to all. I'm a former contributor for the baseball statistics and analysis websites Beyond the Box Score and Rotographs. I've been podcasting about the Giants since 2015, hosting this show for over 6 years, and I'm a lifelong Giants fan. Thank you for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts, including YouTube. So check us out there if you have not already, and please hit that subscribe button wherever it is that you're following the show. And coming up on today's show, we're going to get into the Giants offense sputtering and all of a sudden looking a lot like the Giants offenses of recent years, in which they've sputtered to a 500-ish record. And one player who is an exception and kind of a bright spot right now is Heliot Ramos. We'll get into him and his resurgence. And then how about Kyle Harrison back on the radar after kind of falling off it and getting optioned to AAA. But the first thing to get into is the offense. I think that is the key focal point for me. Yesterday, you lose to the Colorado Rockies. And look, I'm not going to be one to say you got to win every single game against the Rockies. And, they were 1-14 on the road coming into this game, and therefore you should expect that kind of rate of losing by them to continue. And so what's going on? You lose a game. Baseball is not like that. Any major league team can beat any other major league team. But the issue was Kyle Freeland. That's his first name, right? It's been a while since the Giants have played the Rockies. Kyle Freeland, he goes 6 innings, allows 3 runs. And you get a first inning home run off of Heliot Ramos, who we'll talk about later. And then he was basically in command the rest of the way, Freeland was. And that's just not good enough against a guy who has really struggled on the season. He came into the game, or just even after the game, he's got a 5.70 ERA. I should point out that when I look closer at the numbers, he's got some pretty good underlying numbers, like the fielding independent pitching is 317, expected fielding independent pitching 327, expected ERA 416. So the ERA is a little bit bloated, and the Giants have had significant struggles against left-handed pitching. We'll take a closer look at that as well. But just the overall offense, to me, so my point was, the bullpen blew a late lead, but the bullpen has been the strength of this team. And so you just can't expect that they're going to be able to hold every single 1-run lead going into the late innings. The problem was that it was a one-run, low-scoring kind of game against the Rockies. Like, you need to put up 6-7 runs and blow them out in an ideal world. You don't want to be kind of 3-2 in the 8th inning or 4-3 or whatever it was at the time when Tyler Rogers gave up a couple runs. He's been great all year. You just can't expect him to be perfect every time. Like, you're going to lose some games that you lead in the 8th inning by 1 run, even to the Colorado Rockies. And so, for me, I tweeted out kind of a bunch of statistics about season numbers for the Giants this morning, and I'll repeat them here. Now, I don't know if I want to start with this or end with this, but the Giants are 12th in runs per game. These are all with Major League Baseball ranks. So out of 30 teams, they're 12th in runs per game at 4.53. That's not the problem. I'm not making a whole big fuss about being 12th in runs per game. If you can maintain that throughout the year and pitch well, you'll be just fine. The issue is when you dive a little bit deeper They're 25th in batting average at 228. They're 21st in on-base percentage at 307. They're 21st in slugging at 377. And they're 20th in weighted runs created plus, all-encompassing offensive metric. 100 is average. They're at 94. So overall, 6% below average offense, context neutral, adjusted for the ballpark, and yet 12th in runs per game. And so that spells trouble to me. Like, there have been questions when they were winning, like, can they just keep being super clutch like they've been? And I'm like, well, I don't know, probably not, but I don't know. But, well, all of a sudden you can just see, no, they're not always going to be able to be clutch. Like, you're overall just going to have to do better than a 228 average, a 307 on base, and a 377 slugging. Now, it is still early in the season, and those numbers include, like really poor numbers from certain players who we would expect to be much better. And look no further than Willy Adames, right, who has been... He's creeped his way back up to about 25% below average offensively, but still, that's not what you signed up for when you signed him to a $182 million contract. And Lamont Wade Jr., 60% below average. Luis Matos, about 90% below average. So it just has added up. Christian Koss, even though he got a hit and almost hit a home run last night, 53% below average offensively. And so their bench has been a weakness, which we could kind of see coming. And then specifically Bailey as well, a 23 weighted runs created plus, about 80% below average offensively. These are dreadful offensive numbers. Now, on the flip side, Jung-Hoo Lee has been excellent with the bat. Mike Yastrzemski has been excellent with the bat. Tyler Fitzgerald was good with the bat. That's why it's big to lose him. Heliot Ramos, Wilmer Flores have been above average, as has Matt Chapman, mostly due to walks for Chapman. He's hitting just 200, but a 353 on base percentage. And defensively, we've discussed how errors don't really tell the story of how this team has graded as below average defensively. And I don't know. I think that they've been okay. I certainly don't think they've been spectacular. And to me, the biggest concern has been Adames, who's also struggled on the bases and at the plate. Like, it just makes you a little bit nervous. It's only been a month, but $182 million deal, and you'd like to see better performance. He's turning it around with the bat. And look, I'm not going to freak out here, but you'd like to see things improve, obviously, moving forward. And so they were 19-10, now they're 19-13. Against left-handed pitching, they do not have a good record. I forget what it is. I don't have it pulled up at the moment, but they were at one point, I think, 17-3 against right-handed pitching, and something like way worse than that against left-handed pitching. So yeah, they're 2-8 now against left-handed starters, like in games started by left-handed pitchers, and they're 17-5 in games started by right-handed pitchers. The good news, they face a righty tonight, and so hopefully that trend continues and the Rockies maybe got their little road win out of the way. But now you need to win 3 straight to win a series against the Rockies here, and 2 out of 3 just to split. So against left-handed pitching, the Giants' offense in general has been 15% below the overall league average offense. So not great, but not as bad as I would have expected given that record. Now, against right-handed pitching, the Giants' offense has been roughly average, about 2% below average. So below average against both lefties and righties. So I think that record is kind of weird and fluky and not necessarily indicative of they just cannot hit lefties and they can hit righties. So like that, the numbers don't bear that out. The win-loss record does, but the overall offense against lefties versus against righties doesn't really bear that out. But they go to their bench against lefties. And so you've got Christian Koss and David Villar and Luis Matos, none of whom have, well, Villar's been okay, but it was Schmidt who wasn't really hitting either. So real concern for me about this lineup. Guys like Bailey and Wade, like they just really, and Adames need to hit better, although Adames is turning it around. One guy who has definitely turned it around is Heliot Ramos. We'll get into his resurgence and how important it is in just a minute. And before we do, today's episode of Locked On Giants is brought to you in part by Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles, including EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. When I was on the road previously, whether staying at a hotel or family visits or even just in another room, it meant no gaming. But now Fire TV Stick 4K makes it possible to keep playing from almost anywhere, and it's a total game changer. Head to amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max 1st and 2nd Gen, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, as promised, Heliot Ramos has been a bright spot here lately for the Giants. He led off the home half of the first for the Giants with a monstrous home run. It was the hardest hit ball of his major league career, 113 miles an hour off the bat, rounding. Yes, we round. 112.8 is 113 if we're giving it no decimals. So he has turned it around. I mean, think of his last game in San Diego. It was I rewatched this home run he hit in San Diego. It was at the top of the zone at high velocity, and he just spun on it and blasted it into the upper deck. And so these are really encouraging signs from Heliot Ramos. One against a righty, one against a lefty. So deep dive into Ramos coming up. Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers, on Monday, we will be breaking down the final 3 games of this series. Hopefully, it's tough to do, but hopefully you can find a way to win all 3 and end up feeling good about yourself going out on the road to play the Cubs, who have been the best offensive team in baseball. And so you're going to have to bring your A game when you go into Wrigley Field there. And so we'll be breaking down this Rockies series and what is hopefully a really good one on Monday. So Heliot Ramos has lately not been the guy to be concerned about. Like, there are guys that I'm concerned about or just feel like they really need to do much better. Like, you can't have Patrick Bailey, as good as he is defensively, hitting 155 with a 209 on base and a 226 slugging and a 23 weighted runs created plus. Like, he's been better than that in his career, and he needs to turn it around. He's just been lost at the plate pretty much the entire year. He'll kind of poke a single here and there, but he's really, to me, like, he should be batting 9th, not 8th. And it's been a struggle big time. And then their bench is concerning to me. That was a concern going into the year. And yeah, Wade, he pinch hit and didn't get anything done. So you've got some really automatic outs right now in the lineup, and they need to fix that if they're going to continue to play well. It is a very long season, and they're 19-13. And so you got a long way to go here. Long way to go. Worth noting, they're still playing at like a 96 win pace or something like that. And so let's not get too down on them. I do also want to get into situational hitting. That's something that we've been talking about, and how there's maybe like a myth that they've been under Buster Posey, like better at situational hitting. here's a clue, they have not. But I do want to focus on Heliot Ramos a little bit, just because to me, there is something so important about a young player who has yet to fully establish himself getting into a slump and then getting himself out of it. So this year, the slump that he was in, which reached a low of around a 46 weighted 15 game rolling weighted runs created plus, meaning in his previous 15 games, he had a 46 weighted runs created plus as of the 19th of April. And so he started out hot, right, that first week or so. And then it was a real struggle for the next like 2 weeks. But if we go up to now, his 15 game rolling weighted runs created plus, meaning his most recent 15 games, it's at 130. So he's been 30% below average in the last 15, or did I say below average? Above average in the last 15 games. And so he's 25 years old. It's easy to forget how young Heliot Ramos is. He's just 25 and a half. And, you know, because he was drafted in 2017, I believe he was 17 years old at the time. Quite a while ago that he was drafted. And yes, last year he basically kind of started off slow, but then got scorching hot, cooled off, and then was only mediocre, but then got hot again, and had his first kind of real big slump of the year in September, and did climb his way out of it towards the end of September. So that was encouraging. But this is a new year. And a lot of times you do see young players like do well in 1 year, and then it turns out to be a flash in the pan. Like they're not able to repeat it. And so certainly coming into this year, I wasn't sitting here saying Heliot Ramos is fully established and we know exactly what we're going to get out of Heliot Ramos. No, I think you need him to go out there and do it again. And so the fact, just because he was able to come out of a deep slump last year, and this one wasn't as deep of a slump last year in September, it got real bad, but he climbed out of it to have solid kind of rolling 15 game numbers, meaning his most recent 15 games were above average even by the very end of the year. So that was nice to end on a high note. But to see him come out of this and have just much better at-bats as of late, there were concerns and comments about his swinging at pitches out of the zone up, and then he hits a ball that it wasn't out of the zone up, but it was at the top of the zone with high velocity, turns on it for an upper deck homer, and then leading off the game, the hardest hit ball of his career. And if you look at for a homer, and if you look at the exit velocities, even from a lot of his outs in the series against the Padres in San Diego, I was just looking at them and it was like, okay, 108, okay, 109. Like he was just hitting the ball really hard. And so super encouraging to see. And he picked up some big hits too. Like, was it in the ninth inning? I think it was in the ninth inning of one of those games, the second game, I think, when they were down by a couple runs in the ninth, and gave them an opportunity to bring the tying run up twice. And it was an at-bat where he kind of looked like it was going to be tough for him to do anything because the Padres bullpen has been so dynamite, and yet he battled and ended up just hitting a rocket single into center field. And so to me, there's just something extra encouraging about seeing this from a guy who has not fully proven himself at the major league level. And so this is where you gain confidence as a hitter, and you're like, oh, I belong here. I belong at the major league level, because when you struggle, you start to doubt yourself, I would imagine. I don't know about him specifically, but certainly it's a common thing that you hear about where young players start to doubt themselves when they struggle. And so to be able to struggle and then come out of it and do it more than once across multiple seasons, and then have your overall numbers reflect above average production, has to feel really good and put you at ease to a large degree. So he still has to do more of this in order to fully establish himself. To me, it's just not enough yet. If we look at the last 2 seasons combined, we are now close to like a full season of work. We basically are at a full season, 153 games the last 2 seasons combined, 656 plate appearances, 27 homers, by the way, 265 average, 320 on base, 460 slugging, 17% above average offense. The defense has been a net negative. A lot of that had to do with him being played in center field a lot last year, where he was very much not good. And so playing in left, I expect I have seen some bad plays, but also some good plays. Made a phenomenal play. I think it was in San Diego in the second game, but also made a pretty bad play in either that game or the other game in San Diego. But overall, last 2 seasons combined, it's just been a bit of a breakout for Heliot Ramos, and he's only 25. And so I still think there's ceiling in there for him to be even better than what we've seen, or maybe more consistent, maybe avoid the slumps a little bit more. I don't know. It remains to be seen. That's the thing about these young players. And so I just find it extra encouraging and extra exciting to see a young player like this do this, because these guys are more important than anybody to the future and to, like, the long-term health of the organization. They need young players, whether it's Ramos or Tyler Fitzgerald or a lot of their pitchers, to start to really establish themselves as true, no question, big league players. And Ramos is doing that. And coming out of this slump is just confirmation that it's just a little bit more confirmation that he is, in fact, here to stay and a major leaguer, period. And so still time to go to prove it fully, but really good to see. Let's hope he can keep it going tonight. So I do want to address the situational hitting thing, but also we just mentioned the young pitching. The Giants have so much of it, it's easy to forget. Kyle Harrison was like a top 10 prospect by many evaluators, and going into last year, I should say. And he had a so-so year, but they have so much good young pitching. He didn't even make the roster, and he was optioned. Well, he's back on the map. I'm going to tell you why in just a minute, and before we do. All right, here we go. We're going to get into the situational hitting thing and Kyle Harrison being back on the map. When is he going to be an option? Is he going to get an opportunity? When will it be for the young lefty? Thanks again for making Locked On Giants your first listen every day. Everydayers on Monday, we'll be breaking down the remaining 3 games of this 4-game series at home against the Rockies. It's really odd how losing the first game of a 4-game series changes the dynamic. If you win the first one, it puts you in such a better position to win 3 out of 4, versus if you lose the first one, you have to win 3 straight to win 3 out of 4. It's kind of interesting to me how different it feels to win versus lose the first one. And I think I'm not alone in feeling that way. It was definitely disappointing and very frustrating to lose that game. And again, I'm really not going to focus on the bullpen and Tyler Rogers giving up 2 runs. Can't expect him to be perfect every time. What you have to do is hit Rockies pitching, and the Giants didn't do enough against Rockies pitching. They scored 3 runs. That's just not enough against Rockies pitching. They're averaging over 4.5 runs a game. So, get your 4, get your 5, and there you go. But it's the Rockies, so get even more than that, please. German Marquez on the mound for the Rockies tonight, by the way. And nobody's numbers on the Rockies are pretty. Marquez has an ERA of 9.82. 9.82, you heard that right. However, the fielding independent pitching expected ERA, both around 4.5. So, but still, just keep the ERA up around 10. Come on, let's get her done. All right, the situational hitting thing, I did just want to point out that also, by the way, the Giants have the 24th best, i.e. like 7th worst strikeout rate at 23.4%, and the 8th highest walk rate. So they are walking a good amount. That has been a saving grace on offense. but they're striking out in the bottom 5 or 7, I should say, of the league. So there is that. And the situational hitting thing, there's just like this. I bet you if you polled a bunch of Giants fans, not to say Giants fans don't know what they're talking about, but maybe casual fans, they would be like, yeah, the Giants have been doing well, and it's because of Buster Posey and the emphasis on situational hitting. And there's this term that I actually find quite annoying, Buster Ball. Well, the situational hitting has been below average, just like everything else except runs per game. They're 21st with a 46% rate of scoring runners from third with less than 2 outs. And they're 22nd, again, out of 30 teams, at advancing runners from second with no outs. So that could mean advancing them to third or scoring them, just moving them up with no outs, runner on second. 48% of the time do they move them up, 22nd in baseball. And runner on third, less than 2 outs, that runner scores only 46% of the time, and that's 21st in baseball. So there's no evidence to support that they've got some good thing going in situational hitting. They've been good in high leverage situations, but that doesn't mean situational hitting. So it's just an interesting trend that we will continue to monitor as the season goes along. Now, I want to get into Kyle Harrison, and Kyle Harrison kind of jumped onto the map because of a tweet from Alex Pavlovich, or anyone who was paying attention to his outing in AAA the other night, where you can see that in the game, the top 5 pitch velocities all came from Kyle Harrison, ranging from 97.8, the fastest pitch thrown in the game, to 96.5. So Kyle Harrison throwing upper 90s is very different than Kyle Harrison throwing low 90s. On the fastball in 2024, he averaged 92.5. This year in AAA, he's only averaging 93.7. So it's perhaps taken him a little while to build up. But at this point, I think that was his most recent outing where he is throwing upper 90s. And so, yeah, he averages 92.5. And I think it makes a big difference for him in particular, a guy whose fastball, because of his arm angle, can really play up if it's got velocity. But it was just kind of mediocre velocity and mediocre results for Harrison in 2024. No innings in the minor leagues last year, 124 and a third, all starts in the major leagues last year. And it's almost easy to forget that Kyle Harrison is out there. Well, I wouldn't forget about him. He's 23 years old, turns 24 in August. And guys like this, they have ceiling, significant ceiling. And I just think eventually you have all this young pitching. There's the potential to just have a rotation full of young and exciting arms with Logan Webb, who I'm still kind of throwing in that young arm category, even though he's definitely a veteran by now. But Landon Roop, Hayden Birdsong, Kyle Harrison, and Carson Whisenhunt, just that alone would make out an exciting rotation. And there's a lot of guys beyond that too. It's not just those 5. And so you add that to the fact that they have all these veteran pitchers, some of whom are free agents at the end of the year, but several of whom are not. I mean, Robbie Ray is signed for $25 million in 2026, and Jordan Hicks has 2 more years on his deal, 2026 and 2027, but for half of Robbie Ray's salary, $12.5 million a year. So the openings aren't necessarily there, but you can always make a trade, and you either have young pitching to trade or you have veteran pitching to trade. And so it's a good problem to have when you have this many arms. And it's just totally, to me, worth pointing out that Kyle Harrison is suddenly throwing upper 90s. And that could make him a factor for sure. He's on the 40-man. Some of these guys like Carson Whisenhunt, not on the 40-man. And so if there's a need and an opening or whatever, first of all, I think it goes to Hayden Birdsong first. But I don't know. Perhaps, I mean, you want to keep him stretched out as a starter. I believe he's only made starts this year, and he only made starts last year. Yeah, in AAA, he's made 6 appearances, all starts, Harrison. So his last 30 appearances, and even going back prior to that, he hasn't pitched out of the bullpen actually ever in his professional career. What am I talking about? He's literally never pitched out of the bullpen in his professional career. And so I wouldn't expect that to be a thing that they do, although they did it with Birdsong. So I don't know, just someone to keep on the radar. Even though Roop and Birdsong have gotten so much of the attention and Whisenhunt is on people's radars, I think Harrison is probably still that next guy. And if he's dominating down there, which he is, by the way, if you look at the overall numbers in a tough league to pitch in, 3.46 ERA, which is about 25% better than average in the PCL or just in AAA in general. I'm not quite sure how they do that. And fielding independent pitching, 3.01, which is about 40% above average. Strikeout rate, 33.3%. He struck out 1 out of every 3 batters he's faced. And significantly, the walk rate is still good at 7%. So 2023, 2024, and now 2025, he's got his command issues under control in terms of walks, at least, where it's been about 7-8% in each of those 3 years. And so can kind of look at that and say, this is a guy, I mean, who was walking like 15-16% of guys in 2023 in the minor leagues. And he's got it under control now. And so I'm intrigued, and I hope that we see him soon. But there is kind of a logjam to the point where you're already not seeing Hayden Birdsong. So just another arm that isn't getting an opportunity, but really is deserving of one. And so we'll see how it plays out. I definitely expect him to pitch at the major league level at some point this year. Just remains to be seen when. That is all the time we have for today, though. Thanks for making Locked On Giants your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night. Every game, every night, all season long. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. Once again, my name is Ben Kaspick. Check me out on Twitter or X at Ben Kaspick, Kaspick. If you like this show, please consider rating it or leaving a review. It helps me out so much, so thank you in advance, and thanks to everyone who's done so already. Can't wait to be with you again on Monday. Have a great weekend. Thanks again for listening. Today, you are now Locked On Giants.